Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Tellin Tuesdays with myself, Deirdre Ryan. I am a certified parent coach and I work with clients one-on-one in Cork City in person, but I also work on Zoom and I work over the phone. So if you need any support to be the parent you want to be, please do get in touch. Today, I just wanted to quickly talk about a very important topic of how we talk to ourselves, what we're saying to ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, any loops we may find ourselves in. Is really, 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 really important to notice and to start to shift, right? If what we're saying to ourselves is negative, hurtful, harmful to ourselves. Um, when we speak to ourselves, right, our brain doesn't differentiate between threats that are real or imaginary. It absolutely doesn't. So if we are talking to ourselves, or if we're saying we're a bad parent, or we're failing, or we're no good, what's going to happen is we're going to set ourselves off into a sympathetic nervous system response. So we're going to go into fight or flight, or freeze or fawn. We're going to start pumping adrenaline. We're going to pump cortisol, right? So what's going to happen is we become the threat and we're the threatened, right? So the threat doesn't have to be from the outside. Our body is going to respond as if we're under attack, right? So again, really, 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 really important on how we speak to ourselves in general, and absolutely as parents, right? Because if we set ourselves off into the sympathetic nervous system response, where we've gone into a fight or flight, right? Our children will absolutely pick up on what is going on internally, even if we're not speaking it out loud, right? Our nervous systems, all humans speak to each other subconsciously, right? So if you are triggering yourself into a nervous system, a sympathetic nervous system response, we really need to start to notice what's happening, right? Notice what you're saying, and to start to shift out of that, right? Again, many times I talk about Dr. Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion and the 3 steps. It's a wonderful way to bring yourself out of those negative loops that we can all, myself included. I've worked really, really hard on this in my life, and it's not a process that, it's not, unfortunately, it's not just a switch that once you figure it and there's a switch, you click it and then it's all sorted. It's an ongoing process, right? And again, we know that these beliefs we have were there, we brought in place to protect ourselves, right? They all started as some form of protection. So if I feel I am, say, not good enough, right? I'm not going to try new things, so I can't fail, right? So again, it's like, it's a protection, but what happens is that protection isn't actually protecting us, right? It may keep us stunted, and and when things can't grow, right, it's very unhealthy, right? So what we're saying to ourselves really matters, really, really, really matters. It will calm our nervous system down once we change what we're saying. It will be able to help our children to co-regulate, right? So again, and for yourselves, I know if I'm thinking I'm a really bad parent or I'm failing, I practice this all the time. I switch it. And I say, oh, I'm doing a great job. And even saying that, even if that part of me wants to be right, that I am a bad parent and I am failing. But once, so there is a bit of resistance to this. Sometimes it's not as straightforward. The more you practice, the easier it gets, because you can feel, it's almost like, oh, my body will just release, literally and metaphorically, it releases, and I breathe again, right? So find what you're saying to yourself. What story are you telling yourself? Notice how it's affecting you and your body, right? And it will absolutely affect your relationships with your children, partners, friends, right? So yeah, notice what it is you're saying, and find a statement or a method or way that works for you in order to switch out of that. So when we go from, all right, so if I think I'm an absolute failure If I say I'm an absolute, if I say to myself, I'm a biggest success as a parent in the world, right? If it's too far, my brain can reject it and it won't work, right? So you want to put in some sort of intermediary. So saying something like, right, so if you're like, oh, I'm failing, could say, I'm really working hard to be the parent I want to be, or I'm moving in the direction to be the parent I want to be, right? Or even pick out something. I've been very successful in the lunch I made today, right? So it's, again, it's, we want to work with and understand the nervous system and how it works. And sometimes we feel like it's all intentional or just willpower, right? But we are not just a brain, we're an entire body, an entire ecosystem. The nervous system, 80% of the messages come from the body up to the brain. Only 20% are coming from the brain down to the body, right? So again, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing in our body is sending these messages, whether you feel safe or not. And if we're telling ourselves we are failing as a parent or we're bad parents, that is an absolute threat, right? That is a threat to our safety. And that's how our nervous system's going to respond. So we want to understand that and bring it back. Keep bringing it back. So find a way, a sentence, a statement that works for you. Find a physical movement, sometimes taking a few steps, if it's safe, physically backwards can help to get you out of that loop, right? The thymus thump, where you're tapping, helps regulate that vagus nerve, right? Singing, humming, cold water, right? So again, we're going to shift. We want to shift. We want to keep shifting. So we're noticing. Remember Dr. Kristen Neff's work. You notice, right, what you're thinking and what you're feeling. You're connecting to common humanity. So you're saying, of course, anyone in my position would feel like this, right? This is part of parenting, right? So it's not personal. And then you're talking to yourself like your best friend. It's like, oh, honey, I hear you. You're feeling scared right now, and I'm here with you. And you're just really, really giving it your all. What do you need? Do you need a minute? Do you need a break? Do you need a drink of cold water? Do you need a little fresh air? Right? If you get out and put your feet into the earth, just step barefoot on the grass, anything that doesn't have rubber under your feet as well. Rubber is an insulator. It doesn't allow these electrochemical charges to move out of our body, right? So all of these responses creating energy, they're creating different chemicals, in our body that need to be shifted out. So find a way that works for you, right? So first, again, just noticing what you're saying and shifting out of those thoughts. It's not real. It's not real. I did not read this book, and I can't even tell you the author, but I listened to a talk once by them, and they said the title of the book was Tell Yourself a Better Lie. I think I should probably read it because I always think about that title, because that's the truth, right? What we tell ourselves is is how our body's going to respond, right? So that idea of we're telling ourselves we're horrible parents, and we want to believe that, right? So that's how we're designed, right? It will affect how we parent, how we show up for ourselves, how we show up for our kids, even subconsciously, right? So again, I cannot stress the importance of it enough, and I'm listening to myself speak about the importance because I know how important it is. I am so much faster at shifting now out of that. I don't perseverate too long in those spaces. It's an absolute game changer. It gives me freedom. It gives me scope. It gives me my humanity back. So again, and also, this is what your children will learn and what your children will pick up. Sometimes do it out loud so they can hear it modeled, right? Because they do. We all need to hear it modeled. So even for parents, speaking to other parents, other friends, support groups, these sort of videos where you hear another parent showing up in their truth and in their vulnerability. And I have absolutely been there, not just with parenting. I feel like for most of my life, right? And again, I understand, where it's come from. So again, I just feel so strongly about this today, right? Find out what it is you're saying to yourself that is harming you, and see which, you only need to, right? If a ship is going straight, if you just turn it one little tiny centimeter, a quarter of a centimeter, it will end up somewhere differently, right? So you don't have to change everything. Just noticing what you're saying. Know that it's not true. Know that it's not true, right? And try to get your internal thoughts more in line with where you want to go with your values, right? So even if I'm like, oh, I'm saying love and unconditional love is a very strong value for myself and my relationship with my teen. So, and for myself, then it has to start with myself. I can't espouse values that I don't internalize, right? It's that idea that we can't see outside of us what's not inside of us, right? So we're starting here. So again, if I'm looking at unconditional love, if I start down the, oh, you're such a bad parent, or you've messed that up, and now you've ruined everything, right? It's so ludicrous, the thoughts that we can really start telling ourselves, right? So if I want to turn that, even with the lens of love, it's like, I could even say, oh, I'm putting my hand on my heart. I'm filled with love, right? So and that will shift us, right? So find what works for you. We are all absolutely different and unique. What works for me may not work for you, but there is a way out there for you. So ask other people, have conversations about it. Let's talk openly about our own negative self-talk with other adults, right? So you know that you're not alone, you're not the only one. It's not only your personal story, right? So have the conversations and just start really moving into loving and generous and open and inspiring thoughts inside ourselves, so as we do not trigger our own sympathetic nervous response and of the fight or flight, and that we will rest more peacefully with ourselves, and we will be able to hold a more profound space of love and connection with our children. So till next time, just so much love to all of you. Talk to you soon. Bye.